Hey folks, Eddie from Totally Wired Guitars here, and today I am super excited because I am going to be unboxing and checking out a fairly new addition to the Fender offset guitar family, one that had come out a few months ago and that I've gotten a lot of requests for to review. So today we are going to be checking out the Fender American Pro Classic Jaguar. Now, before we do anything else, I want to thank the kind folks over at Zounds for sending this out to me on loan for review. So without further ado, let's get into it. So unlike a handful of the previous unboxing videos that I've done in the recent past, I've already pulled this thing out of the box, but I haven't actually taken it out of its gig bag yet. So this is my first time actually taking a look at this thing. Unlike the previous iteration of the American Pro Jaguar, this is unfortunately not coming in a molded hard shell case. One of the few gripes that folks have had about this guitar when it was announced. And so much like the Ventera models that we've looked at on this channel, this thing comes in a Fender Deluxe padded gig bag. Its packaging inside, as you can see here, is fairly minimal with just the styrofoam sleeve, and boy, wow, that looks frigging awesome. So this comes in a number of different colors. The one that I've got here is their faded Lake Placid blue. Straight out of the box, I've just got to say, firstly, this is actually fairly light for a Jaguar. Most Jaguars that I get in the shop are 8.5 to 9 pounds, and this one definitely feels like maybe an 8-pound even, maybe slightly less. I'm curious to see how much this thing actually weighs, but it is a gorgeous looking guitar. We don't get too many maple neck offsets in here, and just as far as initial impressions, the quality of this thing feels really good. Now, quickly going over some specs, this Jaguar features an alder body with a gloss polyurethane finish. This is the only color in the American Pro Classic Jaguar lineup that does feature a one-piece maple neck, whereas the other ones all feature rosewood fretboards. This also comes with a 9.5-inch radius fretboard with medium jumbo frets, and retained from the American Pro Jaguar that precedes this one is the slightly wider 1.685-inch nut width, which is going to be a plus for folks who prefer a wider feeling neck. Now, the neck profile on this is billed as a modern C profile, and to my hands, it feels really good, not too dissimilar from the American Pro, maybe even slightly slimmer in hand. Just a really comfortable feel overall, not too chunky feeling over here at the first fret, and it still feels pretty tapered and pretty slim up here at the 12th. Now, unlike the American Pro Jaguar, this does feature a more tinted version, amber tinted version of that satin urethane finish neck. Folks who do not like a high gloss or glassy feeling neck are definitely going to like this. And also, unlike the American Pro Jaguar, this does feature your classic gear tuners, which look a lot like your vintage Kluson or Goto style vintage tuners, but they've got the modern type of mounting to them, and have the little nut that keeps the tuners in place rather than the vintage style bushings. The classic gear tuners do feature an 18:1 gear ratio, so if you are used to the 15:1 gear ratio from your Goto or Ping vintage style tuners, these are going to be a little bit more precise, a bit more tight feeling, and I haven't really heard too many complaints from folks who have owned this guitar and other guitars that feature these tuners, and so that is a nice addition here. So moving moving on to the electronics, we do see a number of changes here as compared to the previous American Pro Jaguar. They've done away with the 4-way blade switch, replacing it instead with a 3-way toggle switch here that selects just your bridge pickup, both pickups in parallel, and your neck pickup, very similar to that of a Fender Jazzmaster. You do have your lead volume and tone controls, and they have included the grease bucket tone system, which is supposed to basically roll off your high end as you expect a tone control to do, but rather than a typical tone control, they try to maintain the clarity here, so almost like a treble bleed, so that it doesn't become a muddy mess as you roll off those highs. And thankfully, rather than having that out of phase switch, they have brought back the iconic strangle switch, which for me personally is the quintessential Jaguar tone. So that is nice to see, though I am a bit disappointed that they did away with the series option, because both Jaguar pickups in series does sound really cool, almost like a big humbucker, especially when used in conjunction with the strangle switch, like what you can find on the Johnny Marr Jaguar. The pickups on this model are also different from the previous, doing away with the V-Mod pickups, which were kind of like a hotter, more mid-range focused Jaguar pickup set, and replacing them with Fender's new Coastline 65 pickups. Now, I haven't heard these yet, but the spec sheets were showing that these are supposed to sound bigger and warmer and slightly hotter while maintaining a lot of the vintage characteristics that we know and love about Jaguar pickups. So I'm very curious to hear what these sound like. Now, moving on to the hardware, there are some curious findings that I am noticing right off the top here. So the first thing is, it seems that they've retained that 9.5-inch radius Mustang bridge, the American Pro Jaguar Jazzmaster bridge. This has a 52mm string spacing here that nicely keeps the outer E strings away from the edge of your fretboard. But I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of a downgrade. They have replaced the vibrato unit. These effectively used to come with AVRI vibrato units, and now it seems, as evidenced by the little patent pending stamp here, that they are using the same vibrato units that they are putting on the Ventera 2 Jazzmaster. Now, while for me personally, it is noticeable the difference in quality and how smooth and responsive this Ventera vibrato unit is as compared to an American Vintage reissue unit, I do still think that these vibrato units are fairly good, and not something that I would be necessarily looking to swap out right away. And while it's a downgrade with regards to just the construction, one plus for the Ventera unit here is that it's returning back to a pop-in vibrato arm rather than the annoying screw-in threaded end tremolo arm that had come on the American Pro Jaguars. One final thing that I am noticing here is that they have done away with that nylon insert from the previous American Pro Jaguar that was intended to keep your bridge from rocking, and have moved now to just a rocking type of setup here. Now, if you've been wondering whether or not you can actually convert this to have a rhythm circuit, I am sad to report that while you can, it is going to take a bit more work. This has been something that has been reported by a number of users who've bought this model trying to do that mod. And while it looks very similar and looks like you might be able to drop in a rhythm circuit and a traditional Jaguar plate as is, you are unfortunately going to have to shave off a bit more material off the edges to get a rhythm circuit, the brackets, and the wheels and the switch to actually fit. One other thing that I did want to report with the electronics here is, like the previous American Pro models, this does actually feature shielding paint in the cavities, but it sits underneath the finish. So they did the shielding paint before actually spraying the body. So upon first glance, if you were to crack this open, you might think that this doesn't have any shielding at all, and that is actually incorrect. Thankfully, yeah, this thing actually is shielded. Now, a few other things of note that I am noticing just upon first glance here is that this does appear to have already from the factory an angle at the neck pocket, so you aren't going to need a shim. The bridge here is sitting quite high. I don't know if you can see there, but it definitely looks like the bridge is sitting upwards of probably about 5 millimeters if I were to guess there, which is a lot higher than I personally would want my bridge to sit, but it does look like we have space to dial that down a bit without needing to do any kind of reverse shimming here. All right, so I have got this thing all tuned up, and before we actually plug it in and before I give you my impressions on the overall feel and quality and sound of this thing, I wanted to throw it on the bench and just share a couple of the findings with regards to its stock setup. So we're going to switch now to the bench cam really quick, and I will share with you some of my findings. All right, so we are now on the bench, and I just wanted to share, thankfully, despite this being in the box for a handful of months now, and the fact that it's been kind of a crazy winter this past year, is that I am not really feeling any fret sprout here. So that is really, really nice to see, because you commonly see that, especially on one-piece maple necks. The other thing that I did want to share with you all is that this does feature a synthetic bone nut rather than an actual bone nut, which again is weird considering this guitar is quite a bit more expensive than the Squire Jaguars that feature an actual bone nut. The pickups do not appear to be set up optimally here. The bridge pickup is even lower than the neck pickup here. The last thing that I am noticing before I even play this guitar is I am seeing that the collet for the vibrato looks to be protruding from the vibrato plate a full inch or maybe even more than that, and that tells me that most likely this has way too much spring tension, and that is something that I am going to dial in after popping in the vibrato arm. Now, I didn't cover this before, but inside of the Fender Deluxe Gig Bag that this comes with, its certificate of authenticity, as you will often find with your American-made Fender guitars, and it comes with the little sleeve that has both your vibrato arm, again, a pop-in vibrato arm, thankfully, as well as your 2 Allen keys. One of those Allen keys is for adjusting your truss rod, and the other tinier Allen key is for adjusting the height of your bridge. All right, so we're gonna pop in our vibrato arm here, and without even lubricating it, it's pretty decent right now. It's not overly loose, which is nice, so no floppy arm syndrome here. I am getting a bit of squeak here, and a bit of just metal on metal noise. So I'm actually going to pop that out and apply just a little bit of lubricant so that is smooth for the rest of our demo. I've just got the good old Vaseline here, and we are just going to dip the end of that in here. You don't need too much. That usually is enough to coat it and make sure that we are not getting all that squeakiness that we were getting before. And still, the arm is not too loose in there, so that is nice to see. And one other thing that I am feeling the need to do here, because of my OCD for having a properly set up vibrato before beginning the demo, is I am going to adjust the tension spring to calibrate it against the 10 to 46 gauge strings that we've got here. So all I need to do that is basically loosen up that spring until I'm able to fully engage the lock without first depressing the arm. So it's taking quite a bit because it was set really, really high. Okay, so you can see there that I'm able to fully engage that lock. I can hear it click and lock into place. You know that the vibrato is locked because you can no longer pull up on the vibrato arm. And then now we are going to tune it back up to pitch here. I'm just for ease and for speed, I'm just going to use my little polytune clip here. All right, so now that we've got it tuned back up, we're going to check, and now we've got a little too little tension on that spring, so we are going to adjust it to tighten it now, going clockwise instead of counterclockwise. And we want to get to that point now where we cannot engage the lock without first depressing the arm slightly. Yeah, so as you can see, I cannot. This is going to take a couple of rounds of tuning, because the place that you want to get to, as I've covered in previous videos to calibrate the vibrato to your specific string gauge, is you want to get to that midpoint. I will show you what I'm talking about because that sounds a little confusing and esoteric, but I promise you it's not that hard. So tuning back up, we'll get closer every time. So we are in tune again, and I can see that I cannot engage the lock without first depressing the arm. And I want to check because I want to get to the point where if I do a half turn on the tension screw counterclockwise, if I am able to engage the lock without depressing the arm, then I know that I've reached my midpoint. So now I'm doing a half turn counterclockwise, and I was able to engage the lock without depressing the arm. So I know now that I'm exactly where I want to be, and I'm just going to turn it one last time, a half turn clockwise, to get back to that point where I cannot engage that lock without first slightly depressing the arm. So that is now calibrated to the 10 gauge strings that this guitar came stock with. And if I were to give you just a quick figure on how high the collet is coming out of the base plate here, it is exactly half an inch, right? It was almost a full inch, or maybe closer to like 3/4 of an inch or more when it came out of the box. So yeah, and I can see here and that just feels so much better. A few other things that I want to do before we do our demo is I do want to kind of rock my bridge a little bit here until I feel it kind of click into the conical point of those bridge thimbles that we have installed here. And so I do that by kind of giving it this kind of motion here until you literally will be able to hear those kind of lock into the bottom point of the bridge thimbles there. And then I just also want to give it a quick visual check to make sure that that bridge looks like it's center. Okay, and that looks pretty center to me now. It does appear that they did some intonation on this bridge here, but I am going to check that very quickly. And if I do need to make adjustments, I'm going to make sure that it's intonated before we do our demo. And I'm happy to report that they did intonate it pretty decently from the factory. So that is nice to see. Before we start stretching our strings, let's just go ahead and share with you what our action is at current with the stock setup. So at the 12th fret, I am getting roughly 7/64, right? Or in millimeters, that is ever so slightly above 2 millimeters. So still fairly low action by most people's standards, right? It doesn't really feel that high. And then I'm getting about 3/64 at the 12th fret on the high E string, or right about 1.75 millimeters there. So yeah, the treble strings are set fairly low. And then also just quickly looking at the condition of our frets here, the frets look overall like they've been crowned decently. I am not getting any kind of scratchiness as I'm trying to bend, so they feel nice and smooth. After a quick check, thankfully I am not getting any fret buzz, so the frets here are fairly level. And one last thing that I did want to check before we start our demo here is how much relief we've got. So I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way, right? Because most of you probably don't own a fancy, you know, StewMac relief gauge or something like that. So all you need to check that is a capo. You want to depress the last fret, and you are going to check at the top of the 8th fret, from the top of the 8th fret to the bottom of the string. We're looking pretty good. It looks like it's just about Fender's recommended 10/1000ths of an inch on the bass side, and slightly less than that on the treble side. So I think we are good because we are not really getting any buzzing or anything on any of these frets. So that is good to see. And we're just going to go ahead and quickly with our nut slot depth gauge by StewMac here. We're just going to quickly check to see how well the nut has been slotted. And so they are a bit conservative on the low E here. We've got 33 thousandths, 31 thousandths on the A, a little inconsistent too, 25 thousandths on the D, 23 thousandths on the G, 29 thousandths on the B, and we've got 31 thousandths on the high E. So it doesn't feel terrible, but definitely you could take these nut slots a bit deeper and maybe a little bit wider if you want to go up a string gauge, because it doesn't look like there is a ton of room if you wanted to step up a gauge. But yeah, overall, not bad. Not bad. Most of the time, manufacturers will cut the nuts conservatively to give you room to dial them in. So the good thing that we're seeing here is that none of the slots were cut too deep, which would result in a bunch of buzzing when you were playing your open strings, and I am not getting any of that at all here. So that is great to see. So anyway, before we do our demo, we're just going to stretch our strings, and I'm also going to lubricate the nut slots here because we want to make sure, especially with a bunch of vibrato action, that we are not going out of tune here. Okay, that was one revolution of stretching. We're going to go again. You just want to get your fingers under. This is the same thing that you've seen in a bunch of my other unboxing videos, if you've seen them before, that this is crucial to making sure that you stay in tune. And if this were mine and not just a loaner from Zounds, I most likely would also be soldering the winds of my treble strings to the ball end to further ensure that I'm not going to be getting any string breakage. But hopefully the stock strings can survive here. Yeah. Okay. And once more, getting closer here, and we are just about good on that front. And then the last thing that we need to do here is to just put some lubricant in the nut slots. So I'm turning the guitar around just so that you can see. And as always, I'm going to be using my Music Nomad Tune It. So we're just going to use the little applicator here. Just add some of this to our nut slots. And because we have our bridge set for rocking, right now I am not going to be adding any of this to our bridge saddles. And if we did have our bridge set up to be stationary, like if we had those nylon inserts that keep the bridge from rocking, or if you ended up putting tape around your bridge post to keep it from rocking, then you would want to add lubricant to your saddles. And that's really all there is to it. And then from here, wipe off any excess. All right. I'm going to give it one last check for the tuning, and then we're going to plug in and play this bad boy. The last thing that I've got to do here is just to get the pickups to the point where they're not oscillating at the 12th fret on either our low E or high E strings. So I'm actually going to start off with the bridge pickup here. Just trying to get a visual. So I am hearing it oscillating a little bit. So I'm going to drop that bass side down about a half turn. So that sounds good to me. And then we're going to move to our neck pickup now. Okay, that already. So I'm going to leave that where it was because that already started to oscillate. That's good. I think we have a little bit of room that we can go with the treble side. Just bring that down just a tiny bit. And I think we are good. Yep, that sounds pretty balanced to me. All right, so we are plugged into the Princeton Reverb reissue, starting off with our bridge pickup, and we are on 100% volume, 100% with our tone. And if you've got this switch up here facing your bridge pickup, that is the strangle switch off, okay? Wow, that sounds really, really nice. I can see what they're talking about with regards to going for a bigger sound. There's definitely more low end, a bit more low mids here, and not as mid focused as the V-Mod pickups. They don't sound as hot as the V-Mod pickups to me either, just upon initial impressions here too. So that is really, really nice. It's got a nice warm tone to it. Both pickups in parallel now. Sweet. And now our neck pickup. Yeah, that is a big sounding neck pickup there. Definitely started to make the tubes of the Princeton start to cook. Wow, yeah, a bit dark, maybe a little muddy for my personal taste there. I'm sure we could dial that down a little bit by lowering the bass end of the pickup a little bit. I just did. So yeah, I think if you like a nice dark neck pickup, one with a little bit more output, you are going to dig these Coastline 65 pickups. Let's go ahead and actually check out what's going on with our grease bucket tone system here. This is our bridge pickup at 100. This is it at 75 now. Not really hearing that much difference. We're at 15% down now. Oh. I can hear it dialing out the high end there, but it's not being replaced by a ton of lows, which what you typically get on a standard tone pot without this grease bucket tone system. Here it is now at 25%. It's almost like adding a treble bleed here to the tone knob rather than our volume knob, which is really nice. Even at the last 25% there, having that amount of clarity is pretty nice. Let's try that again with our both pickups in parallel. That's 100%. Now if we turn it down to about 50. 100% again. Yeah, that sounds, I dig it. I dig it. Let's try it now with our strangle switch. Again, volume at 100 and tone at 100, starting off again at our bridge pickup. Ooh, with the strangle switch here, it's sounding very shimmery, very jangly sounding, and not overly thin. I think that extra low end and lower mids that are coming through with these pickups, as well as like the warmth that they were going for with these Coastline 65s, is resulting in an overall more versatile tone with that strangle switch on. We've now set our switch to the center, both pickups in parallel. Awesome. And then now our neck pickup. That's my favorite tone on this guitar so far. Yeah, I'm a neck pickup guy. That definitely made the neck pickup sound a lot more usable to my taste personally. Let's try that now with our grease bucket. This is it at 100 again. And then at 50. That sounds dope. I dig it. I dig the sound of these pickups overall. Let's go ahead and go back now to our bridge. And let's turn the amp up. I'm not going to be using any pedals today. Just going to use the natural overdrive of the amp here. Going to set it to about 7.5 here. Okay, all right. We're at our bridge pickup here. Whoa. Yeah, without the strangle switch on for a bridge pickup on a Jaguar, that sounds pretty big. That sounds pretty awesome. A little darker than what I'm used to, so it's strange adjusting to it a bit. Now we're on our middle position. Yeah, the middle position sounds a bit dark. If we turn up the strangle switch now, that sounds, oh, it's almost like with the strangle, it sounds closer to what a Jaguar sounds like in my mind. But yeah, overall, they did come through for those who want, I guess, for more modern players who want a bigger, thicker sound. The Coastline 65 pickups come through. Let's go ahead and, without our strangle switch on, moving now to our neck pickup. We've turned the reverb up a bit. Beefy, dark. That's a lot of neck pickup. Not necessarily the kind of neck pickup sound that I want. If we turn on the strangle now with that same riff, yeah, that sounds better to me. And then if we want to dial down some of the brightness there in conjunction with this grease bucket tone system, yeah, I dig that. I dig that. And let's just do a little bit of more kind of leady kind of work. All right, my friend. So I think that gives us a pretty good idea overall of what this guitar sounds like. And it's definitely a bit different from what I was expecting. Fender definitely came through on the spec sheet for these Coastline 65 pickups. They are bigger, they are warmer Jaguar pickups, more so than I was expecting. There were some tones in there that were not quite my bag. For example, the neck only position without the strangle switch was a little bit too muddy for me. A little bit of the same with both pickups in parallel. But engaging the bass cut or the strangle switch and dialing in the tone with the tone knob and their grease bucket tone system here really makes this a versatile and unique sounding Jaguar, especially as compared to the other Jaguars in Fender's catalog. Overall, the changes here, as I was mentioning before, are welcome. I mean, I'm a little bit indifferent to the fact that they switched over to a toggle switch instead of the blade switch. I mean, the Johnny Marr Jaguar is one of my favorite Jaguars ever produced, so I am missing the series position here, especially in conjunction with the strangle switch. But I'm glad overall that some of these changes that they've made have resulted in tones that I know that I would be happy to use on recordings or live. And so yeah, I especially love the fact that they did bring back that strangle switch. Out of phase is cool, but the strangle switch, again, is the Jaguar sound, and it is very, very useful here, especially in conjunction with these bigger sounding pickups. With regards to the fit and finish of this and the overall quality, I really don't have much to complain about here. I really only needed to do a very, very minimal setup. The action is really comfortable from the factory, and also the feel of this neck is great. I've said it time and again with regards to all of the American Pros and the American Pro 2 offsets that have come out before. If you've ever played an American Standard Telecaster or Stratocaster, if they had named this series the American Standard Jaguar, it would make a lot of sense, because that's basically the kind of feel and quality that you are getting here. And my first real or serious guitar was an American Standard Telecaster that I rocked for the majority of my early, music making career. And so yeah, this feels very much like home to me. And I really like overall the feel of this neck, the profile here, as I said before, now after actually playing it, is just really, really comfortable, not too thick, and really quite slim here at the 12th fret. And as you move up the neck, making chording and also playing leads just really, really easy and comfortable to play. Now, the things that I considered to be downgrades, such as switching over to the Ventera 2 Jazzmaster unit for the tremolo, wasn't that much of a downgrade in actual use. I really much prefer this pop-in arm, as I said, as compared to the screw-in arm that was on the American Pro Jaguar. And overall, it is a very, very good and serviceable unit. A noticeable but not significant difference to an American vintage reissue unit. And the great thing too is, out of the box, you're not getting any flop. All we needed to do was add a little bit of lubrication to the end of the arm, and I'm no longer getting any squeaks or metal grinding noises here. And I didn't even need to do any kind of bend trick. And unlike some of the other American, vintage reissues like the American Vintage 2 Jazzmaster, I am not getting any knocking at the bottom of the tremolo cavity here, because thankfully the bottom of this arm is not too long. So that is really nice to see. It is a bummer that you can't just drop in a rhythm circuit into this without any further modification. So just know that if you do buy this and do that, that is going to devalue your guitar somewhat. But with these stock pickups, I don't necessarily know if I would be rushing to put a rhythm circuit in here. I don't necessarily need for these pickups, especially like the neck pickup alone, to be any darker than it already is. So yeah, overall final impressions of this is that it's a pretty good guitar. The tuners are good. They kept tuned pretty decently throughout the demo. The tremolo is good. The bridge is good. My final first impressions of the American Pro Classic Jaguar is that it's a really, really nice Jag. One that is crafted for the modern player in mind. You have your slightly hotter pickups, your bigger sounding pickups. It might not be up the alley for folks who are more into vintage accurate specs, but I feel like, you know, that's me, and I quite dig this guitar, to be honest with you. It comes in at $15.99, which these days, if you take a look at a lot of the higher end made in Mexico models that are coming out, $15.99 for a high quality American made Jaguar that really didn't need much out of the box is actually pretty good. And I think that there's a lot of value for your money here, especially as compared to the quality of a lot of the other options that are, you know, in the same price range or even higher than this. This is a solidly built American Jaguar that I could see a lot of folks really digging. Anyway, I think that is going to do it for this video. I hope you found it informative as well as enjoyable, especially if you've been very curious about this American Pro Classic Jaguar. If you are interested in buying one of these, I highly suggest buying it from today's sponsor, Zounds. They are definitely my favorite retailer, and I have been a loyal customer of theirs for well over a decade now. They're my favorite, especially because they make getting the gear that you want and need now that much easier, because they make payment plans such as splitting the purchase up into 6 or 12 interest-free monthly installments. So easy. The application process is a breeze. There's no background check, no credit check. They don't even need your social security number. And again, they are always interest-free, and Zounds doesn't use any predatory lenders like some of the other big name stores out there. So yeah, thank you again to Zounds for sending this one over on loan to me for review. What do you all think? Do any of you out there own the American Pro Classic Jaguar? What are your thoughts on it as compared, if you've owned or played both, to the original American Pro Jaguar? Do you think that this one is worth getting over that one? And hell, why not even share your thoughts if you've owned a number of other types of Jaguar models, whether it be Fender USA, Fender Japan, Squire, and how do you think this one stacks up to those? And what do you like most about this one? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to check them out. As always, if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button, as well as the notification bell to be notified of new videos as soon as they drop. And don't forget to follow Totally Wired Guitars for more offset guitars buying tips.